Number one way to stay broke in Canada in 2026 is keeping most of your wealth in a paid off principal residence.
Oh, boom.
That is the number one way to be the person on the CBC saying, I'm on a fixed income and I can no longer afford my property taxes and the maintenance and the utilities on this house. It's like, that is how you're going to end up. And so they tell you to reduce that debt when, you could have used that equity strategically into other high performing assets. So people tend to do okay with real estate when they start out because they got 5, 10, 20% equity into that thing and the rest of it's leverage. They're born at 5% into an asset that gives them 5 or 6. But as they pay it down, they're just left with an asset that's giving them 5 or 6%. That is underperforming the money supply. That is underperforming quality stocks. That is underperforming gold. Okay. And so their actual real buying power is going down. The number one way.
Okay. That's it. Right. And you get a lot of followers on the channel. We got 1,000 likes on this video.
That's awesome.
150,000 views, 1,000 likes. But then you get the comments, and it's just like that's a shocking statement, and they just react with the vitriol because they it's just what they were told, right? That's a shocking statement because if you want what the 1% have, don't do what the 99% do, right?
Right.
But I'm going to walk through, the first comment is very, just look at the first. I believe this is such a short-term view of a long-term investment.
Oh my gosh.
Let's remember the statement that I said. It's too much of your net worth in a principal residence. That's the recipe to stay broke in Canada. And the number one way, by the number one way, I mean, it's the most common way, short-term view. Okay. I've been doing this job now for 18 years. I've been doing this job for 18 years. So I'm but rather than me tell you my anecdotal experience, I'm just going to show you the numbers because the numbers that you can find publicly available, StatsCan, other sources, they're just going to confirm what I see over and over again. Okay. So here's the total median net worth by age. Okay. So you get a 65-year-old who comes in. Say if I just do a consult with a 65-year-old.
Sure.
The median net worth, $738. What's the median net worth for a 65-year-old in Canada? Okay. The income. And they're telling me it's a short-term view. I already know what the income is going to be. What is the median income? It's right here. $37,600. Okay. That is the median income for a 65-year-old in Canada. Okay. And they're trying to sell it's a short-term view. Here's the scary part of the median income for a senior in Canada. The scary part is, you know what it was 10 years ago? It was $32,900.
Wow.
So in 10 years,
whoa.
In 10 years, this is that's where I'm this problem's not a good problem today. Just think you have 37. I'm defining broke. I think $37,600 a year to live on is broke. I think $37,600 a year in taxable income is broke. Now, someone out there might disagree with me. They might think that they're living opulently and they can live, 8 people in a house or something, and maybe that's a great existence. I personally, I don't dislike you if you disagree with me, but personally, I think $37,600 per year is broke.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. $37,600 for an income. That is, well, what's the poverty line in Canada? I'm sure it's not very much further down than that.
Poverty lines.
I mean, it's kind of
20,000 and then the livable income, but it's broke.
And here's the thing. How are you going to pay your property taxes? How are you going to pay your utility bills, your heat, food?
What if you got to repair
insurance?
Something? You need a roof. It's 10 grand.
Yeah, everything.
And this problem is getting worse because look at the median income. It's like people think, oh, don't worry, it'll go up and up. It's like in the last 10 years, that median income has only gone from $32,900 to $37,600. So we're talking it's gone up by $400 a month. But think about if you own a house, you own a piece of paid off real estate. Has the cost of owning that house gone up by more than $400? Forget about the mortgage. Pretend it's paid off. just the property tax. I would say most people's property tax has gone up by almost $400 per month in the last decade.
Easily.
Okay? Now, you got the insurance, you have the maintenance, you have the utilities on top of it. All that stuff has gone up by more than $400 a month. Okay, so this problem gets worse and worse. So the solution that was marginally acceptable before is not going to be, right? So when someone says it's the long-term view, this isn't my opinion. Like, this is the number. I've just done it for so long that this isn't shocking to me, right? And so I want to go through some of the other comments because it shows the level of financial education. And it's not the fault of the people who feel this way, because this is what they were told, right? And there's a lot of money behind this messaging.
Yeah.
Okay?
And it comes not only from education, it comes from media, it comes from the banks too.
It comes from the financial institutions.
It comes from
right?
the finance, because they're a business. They're not in this to because they love you. They don't have some altruistic, feeling, oh, I want to help people generate and create wealth like we do. They're in it to help their shareholders, which we are shareholders.
We are shareholders. We have that moral dichotomy where it's like, we would not sell this stuff, but we probably own shares in the companies who do sell this stuff, right?
But the whole problem is people are uneducated on how to really grow wealth, and they don't know the rules of money. And I think this is just like when we see the statements that are shown on your Instagram profile, it just shows the lack of education, lack of knowledge, right?
Yes.
So we're not mad at these people. We're just like, they just don't know.
I'm trying to save one of them.
Right? We got to help
save one of them. Today, right? Because like I tell people, it's like, how do I have to get you to a $1.3 million liquid net worth. That is my goal every time someone walks through the door. I got to get you to a $1.3 million liquid net worth. Minimum. And that is the start of financial freedom, where the inflation starts working for you, not against you. And people don't realize that it's actually possible on a median income. It's possible, but it's the lack of education and discipline that stands in the way for most people. Okay. So let's look at some of the other contents, some of the other comments, because it starts to, 1,000 likes, but some people just don't get it. So I believe, the short-term view, we know it's not a short-term view. I already know the answer. Someone comes in, I'm going to round the number. They got $500,000 in equity in a house, and they got liquid assets of $250,000. Okay, mostly RRSPs, a little bit of savings, a little bit of TFSAs, maybe. That's the ordinary. If I look at 10 people coming in, that's the most common scenario that comes in. It's not enough.
No.
It's just not enough, because they have $37,600, and if I'm telling them they should have used the equity in their house more appropriately, what happens when, Trevor, you're a licensed mortgage broker?
Mm-hmm.
When you're 65 and you have $37,000 of income, how difficult is it to qualify for a mortgage at that point, now that you're no longer employed?
Well, age alone will disqualify you from actually getting a lot of mortgage, products, right? There's number one. Yeah. And number two, 37,000, that also, there's no way you're going to get approved, because you're not working at that time either. Right. So you've got no T4 income, like you've got a T1 general, but it's minuscule, and you're not going to get qualified for it. The only thing that they do, the same lending institutions will give you a reverse.
Yeah, they'll give you the reverse mortgage. Let's confiscate that for you.
We'll confiscate your property from you just a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
Right. I know it's part of the mixed bag. It's predatory. I personally can't do it as a mortgage broker. I don't feel good about doing
predatory.
that. Yeah, absolutely. So these people are in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
And it's our job to try and save some of them. So let's look at these comments.
I'm just happy to have a house that's paid for with no debt and keeps me dry. Repairs and maintenance come with rentals and tents too. As if the only option was rent or tent, because they just what's that? Would you rather be like, this is the scenario. Would you rather have a paid off house of $500,000, liquid assets of $250,000, okay, or have liquid assets of $1.3 million and a HELOC of $250,000 and the house of $500,000? One is
I'll pick B.
one has a higher net worth than the other. One has way more cash flow than the other. One has more income than the other. Like by a long margin, and people don't realize like how much difference that makes. Okay. You have a point, but debt is a risk. Sure, you can leverage your house, but it's a risk. Stocks can decline in value and performance. Okay, great. But the false assumption there is real estate can't. Okay. Some people, it's a factor of where you are, right? Because we have clients all over the country. But, we're in Alberta. This is very real for us because anytime someone comes into our office and tells us that they bought a place in Fort McMurray in and around 2007.
Ouch.
Oh boy, they're probably still underwater from that purchase today, 20 years later.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it's
real estate declines in value too. The way you really take risk is you have a concentration of assets. We're big proponents on there are asset classes, right? There are private businesses that might not be for everybody, but real estate, dividend paying stocks, gold, and Bitcoin, pretty attainable for everybody. You don't need to run a business to do that. Right?
We're not talking about the asset classes of, mergers and acquisitions and fine art and sports cars and watches. We're talking about stuff that is attainable by the average Joe in Canada.
Easy, incremental, small increments, consistently over at a time. Okay, so like real estate can go down in people and it can go down in value. Okay, but this is what you know. Here's one. That's me. Own a home, but feeling the crunch. Thank you.
Honesty.
Honesty. Like right? This guy got sold the thing because there's way more people out there looking at this and not educating people, right? Where you see them on the news and that can't be me. It's like, I'm telling you, this is the most common outcome. It's not just my feelings. Like it's right. You can look at this. You can find this on, the Parliamentary Budget Officer. You can find this on Stats Canada. It's like what I'm telling you is like, I've done this for 18 years, but you don't have to listen to me. Just go look up the numbers. Like that is the outcome. That's the trajectory that most people are on. They're on the trajectory that they have significant equity in a house, but they have no liquid assets. And they're broke. And by broke, I mean $37,600 a year, the median income. That's broke, right? It's not the existence of the retirement they sold you where you're going down south and taking cruises. You can't afford it on $37,600, right? I hear it now. It's like, oh, Vegas is down. The Canadians don't want to go to Vegas. Like they can't afford to go to Vegas. They can't afford to go.
There is absolutely no disposable income available for them. So of course there's nothing happening in Vegas. And like, it's not like it was. It's just not. Like we had lots of disposable income. We could go and travel and had some money, go play around in Vegas. But that's not today. That's not right now. Like we're talking $80 packages of steaks in the grocery store. And it's like, what are you thinking? Yeah.
$70 veggie trays, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what radicalized me was the $70 veggie trays, right? So, compare. Here's one. This is good. This starts to get at the heart of the issue. Compare the average annual growth on stocks, cash, and bonds diversified since 1995, and the same amount invested in a residential detached home. You need the facts before you give advice. No, you're wrong. You're 100% wrong. Okay, because if you I'm sorry. Real estate has underperformed the S&P 500. Real estate has underperformed quality dividend paying stocks, not for a year or 5 years or 10 years, for decades. That is the answer. We break down decade by decade at the boot camp. We go through it every year by year, we break it down. But why do people think that? Because the crappy rate at the 60-40 split that they gave them at RBC underperformed the real estate. After they put 40% of your assets in useless bonds and charge you a 2% management fee, yes, it would have underperformed the real estate. Yes. But no, it didn't underperform stocks. What are stocks, right? Quality dividend paying stocks. Even just the basic S&P 500, it wouldn't have outperformed it. It just didn't, people. It's 5%. It's 5%.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And so not all stocks are equal, but neither is all real estate. So you have a nice prime piece of real estate near water that is going to appreciate at a much different rate than a small bungalow in Regina.
Yes.
Like two different things altogether. So when, if you have to be fair in your comparisons, apples to apples, oranges to oranges, what we're talking about is not that. So you have to think, logically and be fair with your reasoning when you're comparing these two things.
Yes. So we have the facts. You can look it up. And if you're having trouble, we show them. This is exactly how we start section 1 of the bootcamp, is go through a 25-year comparison of all these assets year by year by year, including what the government told us was the CPI. And we'll show you why it's not the CPI.
That's right. The CPI is what it is. Okay. What's the next?
Here's it. You can use the equity in the house in a line of credit if you need it. So what's the difference? Good question. Good question. Now, I'm going to take it that this is an honest question. The difference was the compounding. Because, the compounding and the qualification, because we talked about before, it's like, what's the difficulty in applying for that line of credit after you retire? That's problematic in itself. The second part of it is you missed out on decades of compounding.
Yes.
Decades of being able to borrow at 4% and invest at 10.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So yes, you could access that equity in the house, but now you're drawing it down, as opposed to you could have had positive cash flow. Okay. Because if you start this when you're if you come in and you're 65, I can't get you to $1.3 million liquid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all about runway. How much runway do you have going forward?
If you no longer have any income earning power and you just have the 250, it's like, really, you're probably in a scenario where you need to go back to work. Now, they won't feel like that because, I have this equity, but the problem is you're going to live more than 5 or 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
The Office of Financial Superintendent has a really good piece on this, where we know that the average age will be about 90. Now, people are going to say, well, people die before 90 now. It's like, but you're not dying tomorrow. What happens, life expectancy, it goes up, right? So when I'm talking to someone, our age, it's like, I know the average age of death will be 90, okay? The wild part is I know that 10% of the clients will outlive 100. That's
crazy.
So if we talk to 10 clients, one of them is going to outlive by 100. Now, guess what? When you just start drawing down a house that's, making you 4 or 5% and in investments of 250, you're going to run out of money. And things are going to start to cost more, and you're on the other side of that inflation. Okay. So that is the difference, is the compounding. Okay. Because if you start this, you could have had, if you did this right, with no other additional income power, earning power, you could have had $1.3 million liquid. Okay. You could have still had the $500,000 house. Instead of a $500,000 house paid off with $250 liquid, you could have had a $500,000 house owing $250 and have $1.3 million liquid. That's the difference in the compounding. It's a massive, massive difference. Okay.
Yeah. Huge. It's too bad that, people don't, they're not taught these things, and the banks aren't going to tell you about them. The government's not going to tell you about them. Your mom and dad don't know anything about this. So you have to get your education somewhere else. And, tuning into this podcast is a great way to do that. It seems hard, and it seems like it may be an impossibility, but it isn't. It's just knowledge, diligence, taking action in your life, taking responsibility. Nobody is coming to save you. The government's not coming to save you. Pierre Poilievre is not coming to save you. Trudeau's not coming to save you. Trump's not coming to save you.
Carney's not coming to save
you. The WEF's not coming to kill you. It's all about you and the decisions that you make with what you have right now.
I recommend not listening to this guy's advice. I have friends that can't retire because their pension and CPP doesn't cover their rent and groceries. If they owned a dwelling, even a small apartment condo, they had 75% income in their pocket. No, you wouldn't. You'd have $37,600 a year. That's the answer. Mm-hmm. Don't have 75% of that $37,600 in your pocket, even if the house is paid off. Mm-hmm. Property tax, insurance, repairs. It's just the answer, people. Mm-hmm. It's just the answer. Yeah. Okay. Okay. paid off my place completely at 37. Now I'm able to invest large amounts of my income and being debt free. How does that sound, brah?
Hey, brah.
That's okay. I mean, in this realm, though, like you knew you were trending towards not having a significant portion of your net worth in your paid off residence. So remember what the number one way to go broke is. It wasn't necessarily paying it down. It's a significant portion of your net worth, too much of your net worth in your principal residence.
That's right.
That is the way you become broke. Now, could you have done that now that you paid down? Your investment portfolio would be better if you leveraged it correctly. So that's the answer, because if you knew how to borrow at 5 and invest at 10, you would have done it earlier. But, someone like this would be okay. They just could have done better. Okay.
Yeah.
They could have done better if they knew how to leverage, that's the thing. It's like, I wasn't trained by the banks. I was trained to be a CFO. I was trained to manage balance sheets, and I treat balance sheets of households the same way I treat balances of companies. Like, how do I manage that balance sheet appropriately? How do I manage my debt to equity structure? Okay. That's, if you take the same approach, like what I tell people is it's just been rooted in finance principles for hundreds of years. You just have to apply it to personal finance. Okay, that's what you should do, because don't trust the RBC. They would gladly sell you a credit card that with 29% interest. Okay, as opposed to prudent debt to equity ratios, liquidity ratios, return on capital ratios. Like it's just like there's prudent decision making that the things that you really need. It's in a finance textbook. Okay, not in product literature on mutual funds that they're trying to sell you from RBC.
Absolutely. 100%. What else do we got for some comments here?
Lesson learned, paper homes are a terrible investment. Why you have paper home? Canada's broken. Sure. What if you inherited a house, no mortgage, however, it needs thousands to reno? I mean, good question. Needs on reno, I take with a grain of salt, because some people's needs are the roof is leaking and we're going to have mold in this house if we don't repair it. Need.
That's a need, for sure.
That's a need.
100%.
Some people's needs is I don't like the color of these oak cabinets anymore. This needs an update. That's not a need. So I would say establish, like, is what you really have a need here, or is it a want? Because people have a distorted view of how renos affect house valuations because they've watched too many home flipper episodes on HGTV.
Oh yeah.
But most renovations do not add to the value of the house dollar for dollar.
No.
And there's actually stats on this. Like you can look it up. It's like what adds to the value of the house. It's like the neighborhood, the floor print of the house, the finishings of the house. They add to the value of the house, but generally you're not going to add $100,000 kitchen and increase the value of the house by $100,000. You might increase it by $80,000. That might help you move it sooner, maybe. But dollar for dollar, it's most renos are difficult. So you really have to understand, like, in someone like this, like, do you really need it? And what's the opportunity cost of putting that equity into a reno as opposed to diversifying in liquid investments that would actually have a probability of increasing in value?
Yeah, I mean, if this was me and the scenario was, this is my place and it needed a few touch-ups in order to make it a little bit more appealing to the bank for an appraisal, then you take that house and you get a readvanceable HELOC or a HELOC on that house so that you can invest and take that equity, seeing it's a paid off house, use some of that equity to invest wisely. Yeah. That's what should be done. Put a little paint and lipstick, make the appraiser happy, and then use that liquid to invest wisely.
Yes. Boom, this guy has a phone. Yeah. I also have several $1 million of real estate too, but that's a different. So people think that I hate on real estate. I actually own a lot of real estate. So when I tell people I might sound negative on real estate and they get on me for owning real estate, I probably own more real estate than the guy I'm negative about. And a lot of people own way more real estate than me, but I certainly own way more than my principal residence. So different story. Okay.